welcome to the Daily Fantasy Edge. I'm Peter Jennings. I go by CSURM88 across the daily fantasy industry. Of course, joined by Al Zeidenfeld, a.k.a. Smiz, and Adam Levitan. Producer Luke, drum roll, please. My life is complete. The Listener League is now at 10K entrance. Adam, why don't you give the news and notes on how the people can get into the Listener League and anything else on this podcast before we dive into a very full 13-game slate.
Oh my gosh, I feel like you undersold it. I mean, you've been the one that's been pushing for the 10K so hard. This is our first step on the way to a rake-free millionaire maker. But yeah, shout out to all the listeners and people at DraftKings. After a lot of poking and prodding and goading, we are finally at a 10K listener league. I know people think that this is massively incentivized to us. We get no gain out of this other than it is the best tournament on DraftKings. We are now associated with and running the best tournament on DraftKings. You can't really dispute it. Like rake free, $5 buy-in, 3 entry max, 24% of the field gets paid out, flat payout structure. I couldn't fathom a better tournament on DraftKings. So the way you get in is, there's two ways. You can get in on mobile. I know we've talked about that in the past. You can get in on mobile. Just go to DK Playbook. In the top left, you'll see a drop down. You'll be able to go to the DFS Edge landing page there. If you're on desktop, you go to DK Playbook, you find the logo, you get to the landing page there. Either way, no matter what you do, the whole goal is to get to the landing page for this podcast, and then you'll find the link on there. It'll say Week 13 Listener League. Enter here. So I do expect it to fill just because it is the best tournament on DraftKings. And it's exciting, man. 50K prize pool, Al, rake free for our listeners. It's like it's an early Christmas gift.
I mean, look, JPL landed on Mars again. If you can't find your way to the Edge landing page on DK Playbook, like Adam has said before, you're just drawing stone dead. I mean, Google is a thing. Type the things into Google that you're looking for. It will guide you along your path on the World Wide Web.
Mm-hmm.
Adam, first of all, it was not undersold. Did you hear that strong hello? My wife is actually at home right now. She just said, "Oh my God, that hello, you sound like Mrs. Doubtfire." So I would say that's a very strong hello. So I think overall, I mean, this is definitely my biggest accomplishment in life, trying to push this thing to 10K and getting there. And I think my hello warranted, or there's merit there. Like I definitely
it was a strong hello.
Right? Yeah, exactly, Al.
Yeah.
So Adam,
strong.
Get off my lawn, okay? Anything else, Al, going on in Smith's life? You got to see the Tyrell Gazelle in person. You got to see him prance pregame. You got to see Melvin Gordon somehow play, and then, of course, got hurt. I mean, come on.
Al got to see Tyrell Williams play like 9 snaps because he was hurt and got to see the Chargers season ruined by Melvin Gordon's injury.
How dumb was that, too?
Yeah.
Like, well, you know, he said we're not going to play you because you're hurt, and we really need you down the stretch and into the playoffs, so we're going to rest you. But, coach, I really, really want to play. Let's rethink this. And let's put you in on a gadget play in the second half when we're up 17 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And
that's where you get hurt. Yep, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. They're never going to let you back on the sideline again. You cursed 2 of their best players.
Was not my fault. Look, I met Antonio Gates. I met Larry Fitzgerald. I met Patrick Peterson.
Really?
I had a damn good day. I ate some carne asada French fries. Life doesn't get much better.
Did you tell Gates and Larry Fitzgerald that your brand is rostering them into their geriatric years?
I did not, but he did score a touchdown. I can only assume it's because I was there.
There you go. Take credit for the good things and dismiss the bad things. That's smart. I like that. Sounds like
right on the opening drive, too. It's just like they just marched down the field, and the coach was like, wait a minute, Smith is in the stands. All right, run the Fitzgerald play.
All right, with that, we got to dive into the games. We got the Ravens at Falcons. Adam, what are the news and notes here?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's going to start again for the Ravens. Like, we've seen the floor that his rushing provides as expected. His rushing attempts went way down last week. Efficiency went up a little bit, did find the end zone a couple times. So I think Lamar Jackson is totally fine. I think I prefer a couple other quarterbacks, but Lamar Jackson I think is totally fine. In regards to the Gus Edwards situation, Alex Collins is questionable regardless. I expect Gus Edwards to be the feature back. The problem for me with Gus Edwards and why I thought he was a little bit thin last week, even at 4,400, is like when you have a target projection of 0 on a full PPR site like DraftKings, it's just really hard to find the ceiling. So Gus Edwards is scary to me this week, particularly if Alex Collins is back. But either way, like we know, Al, how running backs have destroyed the Falcons, but a target projection of 0 for Gus is something that I'm not sure I can swallow.
So that means that you're all in on Ty Montgomery.
Is Gus Edwards? He missed practice yesterday. Is he back? I haven't checked today. Is he back?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine, man. We'll see. It's Thursday at noon, so obviously, as usual, we'll see on injuries. But yeah, I think Gus is gonna be fine. I think Alex Collins will probably be active too, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, the play is just the quarterback. It's just Lamar Jackson here. I don't really want the wide receivers. Not really all that interested in getting them in GPPs either, because there's not very much chance of like a 150-yard, 2-touchdown performance from any one of the receivers when your quarterback throws for about 150 to 170 yards total on the day. To me, the upside here is all tied up in Lamar Jackson. Yes, it is a perfect matchup for running backs. It's the flowchart matchup for running backs. I anticipate Adam is going to find a way to make another tweet next week. I just don't know which running back's going to get it to best his salary. Now, Ty Montgomery is cheap, somebody that I'm not really considering at all for a head-to-head lineup. I do think that he is in play at least a little bit for tournaments just because of how cheap he is, but it's not a week where we really need to find value. There's plenty of value at running back. There's plenty of value at wide receiver. So, like, Ty Montgomery gets pushed down that value chart because there's a lot of other guys in equally solid matchups with way more volume.
Julio Jones. He seems to go off in these games where it's not necessarily the best matchup. When he's uber chalk, he seems to fail. Is this a eruption spot for Julio? It's a tough matchup, but given that his ownership should be pretty low with the other stud receivers that we have available in better spots, Adam, you're pretty much the Julio truther. You've basically called the eruption spots in the past to some accuracy, I'd say. Not great accuracy, but some. So are you calling it this week?
Well, first of all, you referenced Julio failing as chalk. I mean, Julio never fails. I don't know where you're getting this from. Julio has 6 straight 100-yard games. Julio is just the best, man. How dare you slight his name like that?
Do you want to go back and listen to some of these podcasts where he's like, jamming Julio, you have to play him, and he goes for like 15 fantasy points, which is fair given his price.
Yeah. Has not had less than 21.4 DraftKings points since week 6.
Yeah. Look, this is the best pass defense in the league by almost any metric, right? Like best in yards per pass attempt allowed, net passing yards allowed, completion percentage allowed, et cetera, et cetera. Still, Julio is just the sickest, man, and he's 7,700. Like, you're not going to get an argument for me. I think there could be a lot of plays running this game, and I don't think Matt Ryan's going to shy away from throwing the ball at Julio. So, yeah, when people talk about defense doesn't matter, I think for GPPs, it's for sure makes sense to be on Julio and Matt Ryan at their respective prices, and I agree with you, it'll be low owned.
Al, defense doesn't matter. Julio Jones, 7,700.
I like the price. Look, this is the thing. I like where they've priced players down. We've talked about this all year. DraftKings has been very aggressive against tough defensive matchups to make these players more attractive to us to roster. It hasn't really shown up in terms of the percentage owned. People still fade the players in tournaments that are in really tough matchups. So won't be tough to overweight the field, in my opinion, on Julio Jones, which to me, I think sounds like a good idea to 2x or 3x you project the field ownership to be on a player who's only 7,700, considering the other 7K to 8K wide receivers out there who in a tournament can kind of just do whatever he needs to. He's getting the amount of volume that he needs. He's getting the amount of catches on that volume that he needs to reach value. As I said, he's exceeded value at this salary since week 6, essentially. You've got a massive floor. A bad game for Julio is 15 points. That ain't terrible.
Okay. So I got to go on a little bit of a rant here. Didn't do it at the top. And the rant I want to go on is not included on this main slate, but the reason it comes to mind is Tevin Coleman has screwed me all year. I played him. He's been my Amari Cooper this year. I probably won't play him. He'll score 2 touchdowns. But speaking of Amari, can the guy just go off one time on like a normal slate? He is the freaking king of going off on these stupid slates. Thanksgiving, I play one tournament team with him, and I have nowhere else. And he just kills me in cash. I mean, Adam, can you at least help me here? Like, when is Amari going to do well on a good slate? And is he going to do well? I mean, this isn't going to get out in time, I don't think. But Thursday night game versus Saints, I mean, this is a classic Amari spot where he's not on the main slate.
Yeah, didn't his like one really good game last year was when he like buried the Chiefs for like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on Thursday night?
On Thursday night, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's probably random, but who knows? I mean, yeah, he's just trying to torture your life. That was a really good tweet that you sent with including the Thanksgiving thing with your wife and your family saying Amari Cooper ruined your life. That one got a lot of likes.
Yeah, it's true. She was sitting there, we're playing spades, and she just goes, Amari Cooper scores a second touchdown. I'm white as a ghost. And she's like, Amari Cooper is ruining our lives. Strong. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on to a game with a ton of fantasy goodness. Let's get on track here on the main slate. We have the Panthers at Buccaneers. Christian McCaffrey broke the slate last week, Adam. Definitely want your opinion on him specifically. And what are the news and notes here?
Yeah, I'll start with one injury that I'm watching closely is Deshaun Jackson's thumb, and he went for a second opinion on his thumb. Has been really bad, really, ever since like week 5 or so. I mean, just done nothing. Catch rate really, really low, even for him. So I hope or I think that they should sit him down and let Chris Godwin roam free. If so, Chris Godwin at 3,900 will be an awesome play. Either way, I suspect Deshaun Jackson should be limited. I mean, thumb, second opinion, it all sounds really, really bad. Other injury that I'm watching, Devin Funchess is back. He was returned to practice. I think Funchess being out helps. DJ Moore, I think Torrey Smith being limited last week to 13 snaps helped. DJ Moore and really Curtis Samuel played so many snaps last week. I was shocked that Curtis Samuel didn't have a bigger game in this spot. If Curtis Samuel can get that kind of run again where he plays almost every snap, I'd be very interested in going back to Curtis Samuel. But yeah, I mean, the story here is obviously Christian McCaffrey and, getting on a guy a week after he breaks the slate and his price goes up 900 is almost always a bad idea. But this is just a totally different scenario given the way Christian McCaffrey is being used, given the matchup against the Bucs, given the likely game environment. I have no problem going back to Christian McCaffrey at elevated ownership, at an elevated price tag. It is what it is. Christian McCaffrey's role is just too much to ignore, Al. So I think he'll be 30, 40, maybe more percent owned at 8,800, and that's asking a lot. But I still think he's just strong. He's just too strong.
I mean, look, in week 12, he messed around and got a triple-double. Triple digits in yardage, both yardage totals in 2 different categories. So the NFL triple-double. The second time that's happened, him and Todd Gurley, since the beginning of 2012, we always kind of hoped that was something that would be within his realm of possibilities, and here we are exploiting it. Now, to me, the difference is his goal line usage, his goal-to-go usage over the last 4 or 5 weeks, with him having multiple touchdowns in 4 of his past 5 games, only after scoring 1 touchdown in his first 6. So we always talk about regression to the mean, right? So it's like, well, look, he's scored too many touchdowns the last few weeks, the last 5 games. So he's definitely going to come down in terms of his touchdown production. However, the first 6 weeks, based on his volume, he was really touchdown unlucky. Cam Newton not running in as many, that could always change on any week where Cam Newton just calls his own number inside the 5-yard line. But the usage for CMC inside the 5, in addition to his mid-teens carries every week, in addition to his 8 targets against a defense as soft as the Buccaneers have been against running backs against everything, this entire season, I think it's kind of justified. It doesn't feel like whack-a-mole. I'm not chasing the ball around the roulette wheel. And even though everybody's like, well, he did it last week, he's not going to do it again. What does he need to satisfy you here? 25 DraftKings points seems well within a reasonable expectation for somebody against this defense with the volume that he's getting, especially on the goal line.
I totally agree. I mean, I think the decision is, are you going to put both Christian McCaffrey and Todd Gurley into your lineup? Are you going to jam both of them in? Are you only going to play one? There are receivers that are really enticing as well. I guess the last question on this game for you, Adam, we have 2 quarterbacks that are pretty enticing as well. I mean, Jameis played extremely well. I think they're probably going to keep him in. I mean, I'm not as worried about Fitzmagic, although we've seen that all year where Jameis gets rolling and then throws 4 picks in the game and gets benched. So it's possible, but Cam Newton on the other side, Al mentioned it, his rushing equity in terms of around the end zone has been a little bit lower than we've seen in the past, but both these guys are definitely in consideration.
Yeah, I for sure think Cam is the better play and the safer play. He's also 600 more, and I have no problem whatsoever with Jameis. I think his job security, as I mentioned going into last week, I thought Jameis's job security at this point is way more secure than it's been in the past. They've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick go 0-3, 0-4 with so many turnovers that now it's like, well, we know we're drawing dead with Ryan Fitz anyways. We might as well let Jameis stay in there. So yeah, I think that both quarterbacks are fine. And And DJ Moore, obviously, the matchup is awesome. One stat I want to note, I mean, DJ Moore, yards per route run is like one of the best, most predictive stats out there. DJ Moore, as a rookie, 7th in the entire league among all wide receivers in yards per route run. Just an awesome
route
player.
Or route? Wait, route or route?
No, don't start with this. Don't.
It's too late. It's too late. You know the listeners are saying it, so I had to kind of say it for them. I speak for the listeners. I am the Lorax.
We've been
Adam's
down this
back
road.
and forth here. You've been waffling on this one.
Yeah, I know. I found over during the off season, I found that the correct pronunciation can be either way, and I actually put that out on Twitter. And so the right answer is that you can either say route or route. So don't come at me with it's one way or the other. The Oxford definition is either pronunciation.
So you're just going to use both, and whenever it feels like it. If I feel like saying route, I'm saying route. If I feel like saying a route, I'm saying a route.
Yes.
Okay.
That's basically what I'm saying.
That's good clarification. Let's we got a lot of games here, so let's move to the Bears at Giants. Speaking of DraftKings pricing guys down, we have Giants to consider against obviously one of the best defenses in the NFL, but Barkley, Beckham, both really, really cheap relative to what we've seen in the past. Adam, what are the news and notes? And Beckham, are you going to maybe get back on the train again?
Oh boy, he's not on team water. How can I be on someone who's not on team hydration? It makes no sense. From an injury perspective, Mitchell Trubisky is going to miss this game again. Chase Daniel will start. I mean, Chase Daniel is reasonable. Like, he's not terrible by any stretch. I think people who watched the Thanksgiving game saw that he's at least somewhat capable. That said, I would downgrade the guys on Chicago a decent bit. Still think Tariq Cohen and Taylor Gabriel are in play. But as you mentioned on the other side, I mean, major price slash on Odell Beckham and Saquon Barkley. And like, Chicago's defense is really, really good. One place where they've been beaten is versus perimeter wideouts. And so Odell at 7,800, I think, is in play for sure in a home game. I mean, he was like 25% owned last week. I'm sure he'll come way, way down this week. So yeah, I think Odell makes sense for sure in tournaments. Barkley is a little bit tougher sell for me given how stout Chicago is against the run, but Saquon does so much damage in the pass game that it almost doesn't matter. I think the concern for me would be kind of a lower scoring game here, not the best environment, but I don't know, Al. I could definitely see Odell and Saquon and like Cohen and Gabriel as part of game stacks, maybe if you think the game is going to be high scoring.
I agree that Chicago is a good defense against the run, but not so fast, my friend. To channel Lee Corso here, Chicago's allowing opponents to complete 81.9% of passes when targeting running backs this season. That's the 5th worst rate in the league. And Saquon Barkley's pretty good at catching passes, considering that he has as many catches as Antonio Brown this season and 2 more than Keenan Allen. So essentially you're getting an all-pro caliber wide receiver 1 against a defense that, yeah, they can stop him if they just try and pound the ball with him for 20 to 25 times on the ground, but they've really only done that against Tampa Bay and against San Francisco. Against Philly, 13 carries. Against Washington, tough run defense, 13 carries. Against Atlanta, 14. Philly, again, 13. Carolina, 15. But in those games, 8 targets, 10 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets. And those are going to be easily convertible catches against this Bears defense. I'm taking the Cyber Monday, the sales week discount here on Saquon Barkley, and I'm running to the bank. Give me the 20% off coupon for Saquon, and I'm going to cash it in at $7,900. I think he's a tremendous value just based on his past game inclusion against this Bears defense.
Freaking Al, I have like a couple stats a week, and Al just comes in and snipes them right away on my freaking play that I think is really smart. I mean, to take it even further, Al, I was going to mention some of the same stats. If you think about how this is going to play out, the big weakness that the Giants have has been this offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. This Bears front, Khalil Mack and co, they've been getting a lot of pressure. How do you attack that if you're the opposing offense? Eli Manning can't move. You can't block. They're going to get to him. Short little passes. Who's catching those short little passes more than any other running back in the NFL? Saquon Barkley. He's the opposite of Gus Edwards. He's going to catch a ton of passes here. I think he has an extremely high floor.
He is the polar opposite of Gus Edwards.
He's literally the exact opposite. Like, he's gonna get a lot of catches. So I think he's interesting. But again, I mean, we talked about Christian McCaffrey. We'll get to Todd Gurley. It's hard to jam in all these running backs, and there's some receivers that we'll get to that I think make a lot of sense as well. So I'm on Barkley. I'm not going to play Beckham. I think the Bears defense is in play as well, and Maybe the Giants too. I mean, it's not the worst with Chase Daniel at the starting quarterback position. Let's move to the Bills at Dolphins. We don't have to stay too long on this game. Adam, what are the news and notes here?
Yeah, not much. I mean, Kenyon Drake is going to continue in his like kind of passing complement role to Frank Gore. He's got a banged up shoulder, not taking contact. He's going to play though, so it's whatever. I mean, Danny Amendola is banged up too, if you care. But I think the Bills' defense has proven repeatedly that they're pretty good, and the Bills' offense has proven repeatedly that they're pretty bad. So I really don't see a lot here. And there's even some defenses I like better than the defenses in this game. So I'm not seeing a lot here, Al.
There are 13 games on this slate. I'm going to pass.
All right, let's pass. Let's move to the Colts at Jaguars. Adam, what are the news and notes?
Yeah, a lot of news here. I mean, probably more news than any in this game. Leonard Fournette has been suspended. Carlos Hyde is going to be the early down back. And Carlos Hyde is certainly a capable pass catcher. They just have a guy they prefer in the pass game in TJ Yeldon. Carlos Hyde, though, the difference is 3,300. And we've talked about backs in the past who come in and they're 4K, they're 4,500, they're 4,900, whatever. It's not often we see a back come in at 3,300 who you could project for 15 carries and 2 to 3 targets. However, I would also note, and I don't even know if this is a downgrade to be honest, but Cody Kessler will be starting in place of Blake Bortles. So I don't know. I mean, the overall floor of the Jaguars offense, you could, I guess, argue that maybe it's worse, but maybe it's better with Kessler. Honestly, I haven't thought about it enough. Cody Kessler, I thought, has handled himself better than people realize when given starting opportunities. More news and notes, though, Al. So many. Marlon Mack is in the concussion protocol. If he can't go, Naheem Hines and Jordan Wilkins would share the work. Obviously prefer Naheem Hines as the pass catcher. Jack Doyle is done for the year. Big role for Eric Ebron coming, particularly with Mo Alley Cox and Ryan Hewitt and Eric Swoop all banged up also. So I expect Eric Ebron to be pretty easily the most owned tight end on the slate. And then Jalen Ramsey has a knee injury too. I think he's going to play, but he's scheduled to shadow T.Y. Hilton. So worth watching Jalen Ramsey.
T.Y. Hilton also missed a practice. Is he looking okay?
Yeah, I think he'll be okay. I mean, these Wednesday practices at this point in the season, like if you're good, you shouldn't be practicing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Eric Ebron's going to get 9+ targets this week. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's enough already.
The thing is, Ebron has failed a lot. People are going to hesitate on Ebron. Not saying his ownership will be low, but people are going to hesitate because Ebron has, unlike Julio, Ebron has screwed people at very high ownership in the past.
Detroit, not on Indy this year.
Yeah.
This could be the week. Sure, yeah, anybody could fail. It's the NFL. You could turn an ankle, you could get concussion protocol in the first half. But all the games where Jack Doyle has missed, he has not disappointed in terms of his market share of snaps, routes run. Yes, I said routes run. And his targets and catches and red zone usage and end zone targets and everything else. And then the last week, it was okay, Jack Doyle's there, but so you don't play Ebron. Well, all the other tight ends were out, so Ebron saw a tremendous amount of snaps as well. He has got the trust of Andrew Luck, and he's 4,200. And then also in this game, I mean, that one's not DraftKings' fault. He was priced at 4,200, kind of as he should be. It makes it a decision between Jack Doyle and him. Pricing, the injury news came out after the pricing. All season long, DraftKings has done a great job of pricing up backup running backs to a point where they're like mid 4Ks, right? So like Yeldon is 4,400. Even with Fournette there, and then in case something happens, it doesn't break the slate. Well, they left Carlos Hyde at 3,300. Like, I think he's going to be massively owned. I think that you're going to play I think that most people are going to play 2 high-dollar running backs with Carlos Hyde because, as Adam said, the projectable volume, Hyde seeing 42 goal-to-go carries over the last 2 seasons, last year and this year combined, as opposed to Yeldon's 2. So let's just assume that if there are goal-to-go carries, they're going to go to Carlos Hyde. He should be the ground back. He can catch the ball as well. For 3,300, how much volume do you really need? I mean, he looks like a very easy play in both cash games and tournaments here. So you're playing Ebron, you're playing Hyde.
Whoa.
And the rest, not you,
the lineup.
The royal you, the understood you. I'm talking to our listeners. You're probably playing Ebron, you're probably playing Hyde, and then all of a sudden, like, everything else just kind of opens up. Like I said, you don't need, we need like 2, value plays on a slate and then a value tight end. We have the value running back. We have the value tight end. I think there's plenty of different value choices at wide receiver to choose from. It seems like a very not easy week to make a lineup because there's a lot of running backs I want to play. Like if I could play 6 running backs this week, I would, but Carlos Hyde would certainly be one of them.
Agree with that. Adam, I do want to know your lineup later. So
you text that to me, Libby.
Yeah, maybe we'll put it on the podcast because I know Adam, he won't text it to me, but he'll at least give it out to the 7 listeners that we have for this podcast. Although clearly we have a little bit more than that with the 10K listener league. The other thing that I want to point out here, the Jaguars' pace has been dramatically different with Fournette in and Fournette out. They're going against the Colts, who also are a throw-happy team. And if Marlon Mack is out, they're going to be throwing even more given how Naheem Hines should be used. So this could be a very high-paced game. And you guys just mentioned 2 really nice value plays. This is a game you can stack with value and then load up on some of these other studs. So I think there's a lot of fantasy goodness here. They'll be heavily owned in cash and probably heavily owned in tournaments as well. But the game environment could be very good, especially if the news breaks the right way. Adam, any final thoughts on this game? Any receivers you like on either side?
No, I mean, I think T.Y. Hilton is always going to be in play for sure. I've had trouble getting a handle on the Jaguars guys and have mostly ignored them due to Blake Bortles' struggles. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I think Cody Kessler is a little bit better than people realize. So maybe there is something there.
Okay, let's go to the Browns at Texans. Lamar Miller getting the Monday Night Football. Obviously, the pricing comes out and then he goes ham on Monday Night Football. So he is an intriguing option I want to hear about as well as the news and notes.
Yeah, I'm not excited about Lamar Miller. I mean, I know Cleveland's been struggling against running backs, but we've seen Lamar Miller show like such a middling, to poor floor ceiling combo over the last couple of years, even on significant volume. So I'm not too excited about that at all. I mean, it's an interesting game, not a lot of injuries. Baker Mayfield comes in playing really well, but spreading the ball around a ton. So even though like Jarvis Landry is really cheap, like I just haven't played Jarvis Landry in a long time and don't plan on starting now, even though he gets cheaper. And then from a pricing perspective, Al, like I probably I consider Nick Chubb, but not strong enough last week. Now he's 7K, a bit of a tougher matchup. I think it's a bit of a tougher sell considering what's around him with some guys that we'll get to. But I mean, Nick Chubb is playing awesome and like a stone lock for 20 carries, and we've seen his passing role increase. So like, I don't particularly hate Nick Chubb. I'm just not as excited about it at 7K.
Yeah, I mean, they've priced him up kind of where he belongs. We've had him in value town for the last few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's kind of caught up with his volume. His price is caught up to his volume at this point. Lamar Miller, everybody gets all excited because he had a 97-yard touchdown run. You take that away, and all of a sudden his night on an island game doesn't look as tremendous. Yes, Cleveland hasn't been great against running backs, but I'd prefer Hyde to him. I'd prefer Phillip Lindsay to him. I'd prefer Aaron Jones to him. There's a lot of running backs that I have ahead, and we haven't even gotten to the elite ones. Right? So those are the low to mid-range running backs that I'd probably grade ahead of Lamar Miller just for this week. I know that people are going to play him. I know that his ownership's going to be elevated coming off of the Island game where he had that huge touchdown run. But like, I mean, other than a sprinkle in tournaments, I don't know if I'm all that geeked to play Lamar Miller.
Yeah, it's the opportunity cost that makes it tough. I do love – never mind, I'm not going to say anything about Chubb. He was a great play last week. Yeah, I think that this game has some sneaky fantasy goodness. Demaryius Thomas, people might chase those stats. I'm definitely not going to do that. I still think he's towards the backside of his career here. It does benefit from playing opposite DeAndre Hopkins. Jarvis Landry, like you mentioned, is cheap. I think a tight end that is a good pivot is David Njoku in tournaments if you want to look for something contrarian. But, a lot of plays here, but nothing that really, really stands out. Let's go to the Broncos.
Hold on, let me just say one thing about the Texans offense because, it seems like a good spot for Deshaun Watson and these guys. Denzel Ward will be on DeAndre Hopkins. Not that that's been a big deal. The problem for me is Deshaun Watson hasn't attempted more than 25 passes in any of his last 6 games. I mean, it's crazy how conservative and run heavy that they've gone. So it's tough to expect a lot of volume here, which kind of makes it tough on Hopkins and Thomas and these guys. So yeah, it's just for me from a volume perspective that would be my concern. And I was shocked when I was like looking through and I was like, God, I mean, Deshaun Watson to throw only 25 passes in a game in 6 straight weeks in today's NFL is just crazy. But they've been winning that. They've won like 8 straight games.
Yeah. I think Lamar Miller Texans defense is a decent combo, and I like Lamar Miller a little bit more than both you guys, but the opportunity cost is massive. There's a ton of running backs that are just great plays. Broncos at Bengals, Adam. News and notes, and let's just talk about how great the Broncos are playing. I mean, coming off wins against the Chargers and the Steelers, my boy Shelby Harris wins the game. I mean, this is great. And now we have a quarterback that I actually think is interesting with the Bengals. That's the big news here with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, major letdown spot for the Broncos. I mean, if Andy Dalton was playing in this game, I would say the Bengals would just be the stone lock. It's a little bit tougher with Jeff Driscoll under center, but yeah, I mean, Denver off these huge wins against the Chargers and the Steelers. Now everybody's saying that the Broncos are going to run the table and go to the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. It's tough. You know, I think that this could be a lower scoring struggle than maybe other people do. But yeah, I mean, Jeff Driscoll will start for the Bengals, which gives the Broncos certainly more upside. Jeff Driscoll was a 2016 6th-round pick of the Niners, got waived that preseason, I believe, and immediately claimed by the Bengals. They've had him ever since. I mean, they obviously like him. They've kept him for almost 3 years now. I thought Jeff Driscoll played reasonably well in the preseason. He will get A.J. Green back from his toe issue, which obviously helps a ton. So, yeah, it's tough to project exactly how Jeff Driscoll's going to play. Not the best matchup against this pass rush. Chris Harris and these guys. I think the most popular play in this game, Al, will be Phillip Lindsay at 5,400. Yeah. And, you know, Royce Freeman is still involved, but Phillip Lindsay's price reflects that. It's not like Phillip Lindsay is 7K with Royce Freeman involved. It's 5,400. And Phillip Lindsay has been like the most efficient or one of the most efficient running backs in the league. Obviously, the Bengals defense has just been struggling so badly. So, yeah, I think Phillip Lindsay at 5,400 certainly makes sense in this spot.
To that, since week 6, the Bengals are allowing a league-high 171.8 rush yards per game. They're facing Phillip Lindsay, who is averaging 5.8 yards per carry this season. And you guys have been poo-pooing me on Lindsay all season long. 20 fantasy points on DraftKings last week, 26.6 the week before, 10.4 against Houston, 20.2 against KC, 16.6 against Arizona at Arizona. They just keep finding ways to get this kid the ball, and somehow he finds space and he looks electric every time he touches it. 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games on the ground, even last week with Freeman there. I think there's massive upside here for a guy who's 5,400. As I said before, there's 6-7 running backs that I want to play this week, and about 5 of them I think are considerable for cash. And I think that Lindsay is right there on the fringe of being cash game viable, but I don't think he's necessary now with the emergence of Hyde or the people that want to play Lamar Miller. I personally have Phillip Lindsay ahead of Miller going into this week. Yeah. And this is now the part of the show where Pete talks about Courtland Sutton.
Well, I was going to bring up Courtland Sutton only because Courtland Sutton could put me in my parents' basement just like Phillip Lindsay. He lives with his parents. Did you know that, Al?
I did not know that. That's a fun fact.
Fun fact, Phillip Lindsay, undrafted, still lives with his parents, and he is just dominating. So root for Phillip Lindsay. Courtland Sutton, I mean, come on, just one time. Just please do something. Please, Courtland
Just play
Sutton.
Lindsay and Emmanuel Sanders and stop playing Sutton. Play those two instead of him. You'll be fine.
I play all three.
Okay, there you go.
Courtland Sutton has been, man, it's been bad. He ran bad to start the year. Now he's just playing bad. I mean, he had couple penalties, a couple drops, definitely has not performed the way I thought he would with Demaryius Thomas leaving Denver. On the other side, though, A.J. Green is a little intriguing, and Tyler Boyd, I think, is going to see a lot of Chris Harris, which is concerning. It was a great play last week. And one other element that I think is at least worth mentioning, Driscoll is a really athletic quarterback who has a lot of rushing equity. So if you want a contrarian quarterback, he could make some sense. I'd probably stack him with A.J. Green instead of Boyd, given Boyd's price increase and the fact that he plays mostly in the slot. And I think Harris should be on him quite a bit. Any love for Driscoll, Adam, as a GPP play?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be tough for me to go there. Like I said, I think this game will be lower scoring than maybe people think. So yeah, for me, if I was going wideouts in this game, I ended up playing Manny Sanders last week, even though I wanted to play Tyler Boyd. I chose to save the 500, which I needed. Went down to Manny. Now Manny's 6,300. Still a really good matchup, and still, Darqueze Dennard in the slot's just been getting killed for the Bengals. So still a really good matchup for Manny Sanders. The price, he's getting close to like the Rams guys and Kenny Galladay and whatnot. So it's a little bit tougher on Manny, but still think he's in play. And if I was playing Bengals guys, I'd probably play Manny and Lindsay with it.
All right. Well, that's a great transition considering we have the Rams at Lions as the next game. What are the news and notes? And you just alluded to it there. Manny's close to Galladay. He's close to the Rams receivers. This certainly could be a shootout if the Lions can keep it close.
Yeah, Marvin Jones is officially done, and we know Golden Tate is long gone. So once again, Kenny Galladay, just so talented. His target floor is once again elevated, and he's only 6,700. I mean, the Rams corners, Aqib Talib is back in practice, but he hasn't played in 2 months. I'd be shocked if he was able to come out and play this week. So I expect it to once again be like Marcus Peters and Sam Shields, who have just been getting destroyed. So certainly like Kenny Galladay, Bruce Ellington and Theo Riddick are good bets for 6, 7, 8 targets, but there's just like no upside on those guys given their ADOTs are like sub 5 yards and they don't see a lot of red zone work. Other injury news, Kerryon Johnson not expected back. So it'll be LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount was able to get there on Thanksgiving and just, it's just the worst when LeGarrette Blount gets there. It's like so painful.
Thanksgiving was
2016.
Yeah.
How tilting was Thanksgiving? I mean, that was Kamara and Michael Thomas do absolutely nothing. Amari busts off a 40-burger. Blunt scores multiple touchdowns. I think I was actually doing a pretty good job not sweating. I spent most of the time with the family and then just looked down to see my DraftKings balance completely by Amari Cooper in that atrocious Saints-Atlanta game. Al, sorry to interrupt there. I know you have
do your thing.
I mean, it was tilting. I mean, tilt giving was it was rough.
Yeah. So I think, Al, I was going to ask you, I think one of the biggest decisions we alluded to earlier is Christian McCaffrey or Todd Gurley. I think it's you can certainly fit them both. I think it's reasonably tough to fit them both. You have a preference between Gurley and Christian McCaffrey. Now we're at a point where it's only a $500 difference.
I mean, I'm probably leaning towards McCaffrey this week for cash, but I think that Gurley is also one of the cash game viable running backs, and I'll probably have an equal share of both in tournaments, but we'll see how it shakes out on Sunday morning. I think that you can get both with Carlos Hyde. I think there's enough value at wide receiver, and one of those wide receivers that allows you to get, if you want to play team jam him in and fade Hyde and get 3 guys, one of them is Bruce Ellington. Adams spoke to the fact that he's got a really low ADOT, but when you factor in over the last 2 games, he has 12 catches on 16 targets, and those targets tie him for the 3rd most slot targets in the league over that stretch. It's also more catches and targets than Amari Cooper has the last 2 weeks. And the Los Angeles Rams are allowing the 3rd most yards per slot completion on the year and the 2nd highest slot touchdown percentage at 10%. I think that Ellington does have a little bit of upside, just considering the price, like 16 to 20 point upside if he can get himself into the box this week. And for 3,500, you do have a really high floor. And I think the ceiling is there. He's very Enunwa-ish when we were talking about Enunwa for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season and how he didn't really have this huge ceiling, but he had a really high floor. I think he's got that high floor, but based on the matchup and how much they're going to have to drop back against the Rams, I think this is a spot where Ellington brings with him a little bit of touchdown upside.
Yeah, Adam, I'd like to kick back the question you asked to Al. How are you thinking about your cash game lineup? Are you thinking Gurley, McCaffrey, Hyde? I mean, can you tell us which 3 running backs you have?
Oh, everybody's got jokes. It's so funny. There's so much. There's so much funny stuff on Twitter too. People tweeting me stuff about asking for my lineup and stuff.
For those of you listening, he's at Adam Levitan. If you just want to ask him for his lineup, he'll be sure
to tweet at him asking for his lineup advice.
Yeah.
You know what? You guys keep this up. We're never doing a podcast on a 3-game slate ever again. No playoff podcast, no Thanksgiving podcast. It's just too much.
You act like that impacts me negatively.
I'm talking to the listeners. We should mention the Rams side though, the receivers, because obviously they're really healthy, but Cooper Kupp is obviously out for the season. In theory, we'll see Darius Slay on Brandon Cooks. And in theory, that's better for Robert Woods and Josh Reynolds, obviously. In practice, I'm not sure Darius Slay can really handle Brandon Cooks, so I'm certainly not opposed to him. But yeah, I mean, Josh Reynolds' price, I wish he was cheaper. I think Josh Reynolds is a better play than people give it credit for. Josh Reynolds is running a route on every one of Jared Goff's dropbacks, and Josh Reynolds had really strong college production. Josh Reynolds obviously has faith. Jared Goff has faith in Josh Reynolds in the red zone that we've seen. So if Josh Reynolds was like 4K, I would like him way more than Bruce Ellington. But at 49, obviously it's a tougher sell. So
it's a price issue.
Yeah, major price issue on Josh Reynolds. But I still think he has a chance at a really good game.
Absolutely. I mean, the Rams, what personnel they're going to run out there. I mean, he should be playing almost every snap. He's taking over the Cooper Cup role, and I think both Woods and Brandon Cooks are certainly in play. They're right in that same range as Galladay. In a game stack, you can load up any combination of those guys. Cooks has great splits indoors too. I get Darius Slay's the best corner, but man, he's put on some just major performances. Obviously, going back to when he played with the Saints, he was much better at home. And if you just look when he plays indoors, that is a perfect environment for him. So love this game. We didn't talk really at all about Todd Gurley other than asking Adam if he's in his lineup. I think he's phenomenal. If you want a little secret, Adam plays Todd Gurley every single week. So he will be in Levitan's lineup if you're trying to keep track at home. Let's go to the Cardinals at Packers. We have another running back who I think is an awesome play. Aaron Jones going against this Cardinals defense is definitely in consideration. Adam, is he in your lineup, and what are the news and notes?
So the way that everybody attacks the Cardinals, I mean, everybody, they face the most rushing attempts in the league by a significant margin. Like, everybody's like, you know what? We're just going to run. They're not even that bad against the run. It's just like, why should we do anything else? Because Arizona's offense is so bad. So everybody just runs at the Packers. And Aaron Jones, as Pete alluded to, has just taken firm control of this backfield, just total domination ahead of Jamal Williams. Obviously, Ty Montgomery is now in Baltimore. So in this spot, particularly given that we'll see Patrick Peterson on Devontae Adams. And by the way, Patrick Peterson, we haven't talked about him a lot this year, but he continues to play at a really high level, just on a really bad team. I would expect another run-heavy approach out of the Packers this week, or a more run-heavy approach than usual for them. So I think Aaron Jones is for sure really strong, particularly with like Randall Cobb banged up, in doubt, Jimmy Graham banged up and in doubt, with St. Brown and Valdez-Scantling out there. It's just like not as strong for Aaron Rodgers to drop back 40 times or so. So yeah, Al, I think Green Bay passing stacks will probably be under-owned this week relative to their ceiling, but I am worried about their floor this week, and Aaron Jones is for sure the best play to me on the Packers side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 5 touchdowns in his past 3 games. As you said, Arizona, the most run-on team in the league. Aaron Jones just looks like the guy that we all kind of thought that he would be. Everybody projected he was going to take over the job from Jamal Williams. He seems to have finally done that, but I don't know if he's going to get 20 to 25 touches. He's going to have to do it on 18, in my opinion, in most opportunities. This is a week where he could get more than that, just based on how much people feed the running backs against Arizona. They're bad against the run, and they allow volume against the run because everybody figured out how bad they are against the run. So hoping here that we can get what we expect out of Aaron Jones this week. There's not really all that much else that I want to target in this game. It's just him, but he's at that in-between price. I think if you're going with a team jam him in lineup where you go with 2 high dollars and looking for a little bit of value, I think Aaron Jones is one of those guys you consider for that third running back in. Very possible if you want to go with 3 value wide receivers to do that. If you want to get one of the higher dollar ones, I don't think you can.
How dare you not bring up Larry Fitzgerald, especially after you saw him in person. You saw him catch a touchdown. You talked about the beginning of the show. I mean,
he's done everything he's had to do now. That'll do, pig. You're done. Congratulations. You can ride off into the sunset. I saw you score a touchdown in person.
Can we go back to when Larry Fitzgerald was like a 3rd-round pick in season-long leagues before this year? I mean, what in the world were people thinking? Talking about hanging on to the past, man.
Yeah, not good for anyone who drafted Larry Fitzgerald. Christian Kirk, long shot GPP play if you want to go to it. Maybe in the past, Aaron Rodgers at home, we'd be loving him in a spot where the Packers are implied for a ton of points, but just been very disappointing. He looks sad with that big beard, and MBS has disappointed fantasy owners in a big way. He'd be someone I'd be looking to, considering Patrick Peterson should shadow Devontae Adams, but just been very disappointing, and the Packers should be running here. I do think the Packers defense is a very strong play, but they are expensive. Let's go to the Chiefs at Raiders. Ty Freak Hill, get ready for your mentions. Best things to do with Adam, tweet about Tyreek and ask him for his lineup. What are the news notes here?
On Tyreek, man, have you seen his price?
It's high. I mean, quite elevated.
I know a fluky player would never be priced that way.
9,100 for a guy who has seen 8 or fewer targets in 6 of 10 games this year. 9,100. He's 1,400 more than Julio. He's 1,800 more than he was the last time he was on the main slate.
Imagine calling him Ty Fluke.
He's
How dare you bring
9,100 more than CSU Ram this week.
Imagine bringing up his target share and his targets again. I mean, this is your argument for the last
He
couple of years.
does have 24
Really
targets the
worked out
past
well.
2 games, though.
No. Look,
Worked out well. Hey, let's talk about Tyreek Hill only gets 7 targets a week. Oh, I can't play him. Yada yada yada. Hey, it's 9,100. He's going to win someone $1 million this week.
Look, here's the deal. Obviously, a target to Tyreek or Ty Freak or Ty Fluke or whatever is worth way more than
Fluke. What?
It's worth way more than any other wideout in the league. I totally get it. The Chiefs have the Raiders have no prayer whatsoever of stopping this Chiefs offense, like zero. The Chiefs are going to score 30 plus points. It's extremely, extremely, extremely likely. The question to me is, will the Raiders be able to fight back at all with their offense? I don't know. I don't know how many attempts we can project for Patrick Mahomes here. He's 7,600, which harkens back to the days of old DraftKings where the good quarterbacks were 8K and the bad quarterbacks were 5,500. Now everybody's so close, except for Mahomes is 7,600. I'm not going to argue with anybody playing Mahomes and Tyreek, and Kareem Hunt I think is an awesome play at 7,800. Kelsey at 7K. These are all awesome plays. I just think if the Raiders can't keep up and they're already a bit overpriced, then we have a major, major problem on our hands. One injury note before you comment, Al. Sammy Watkins, very, very questionable with his foot injury, would thrust Chris Conley into a prominent role. That role has been up and down in this offense before. You could see 2 targets. You could see 8 targets. So I'm not sure exactly what to expect, but Chris Conley would be in play for sure if Sammy Watkins sits.
Blowouts are a risk, right? And we worry about if we're paying this much for players and they're not going to really have a team that's going to keep them with their foot on the pedal, what's going to happen? However, in the last 3 games that have been decided by 10 plus points, the last 3 kind of blowout games for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes has averaged 26.6 fantasy points in those 3 contests. So is he blowout proof?
Yeah. Like I said, they're going to score 30. It's, you know what I mean? I don't think they're going to be pressed to score 50 in this game.
I mean, how often do teams score 50?
Well, if you're
I don't think it's going to be 100 plus total points this week.
Okay,
Shocking.
If you're paying 9,100, they better score 50.
Okay.
Fired up about Tyreek. I wish we could go back in time and I'd be like, Adam, there's going to be a future date here. We're going to look to November 29, later on. It's going to be December of 2018, and Tyreek Hill is priced at 9,100, 1,400 more than your boy Julio Jones. I have one narrative for you guys that I think is actually a reasonable narrative that could play into this game. Patrick Mahomes is fighting with Drew Brees for MVP, big time. Those are the 2 guys. It's not Todd Gurley. It's not anyone else. It's one of these 2 guys. The Chiefs know that. Andy Reid knows that. And this is a tissue soft defense that they're just going to be able to absolutely torch. So I do think there's risk. I think Kareem Hunt could have a really big game. You also want to make sure you keep these guys healthy, but I could see the Chiefs pouring it on a little bit here. I wish the Raiders had any sort of competence on offense. I think that would help them so much. But yeah, Doug Martin maybe has a good game. Still got Seth Roberts, so I'm surprised Al hasn't talked about his boy. I don't know. I think the narrative is at least worth considering, though, being serious. They're going to try to get him touchdowns. And, I could see here on the red zone, let's run it in with Kareem Hunt. We'll just do the little toss sweep or Tyreek Hill on the jet sweep where they can get basically a run play, but they still get the touchdown from Mahomes. So I think that's worth considering. We've
seen the Chiefs run up the score on people, or at least try to. You know what I mean? So it's certainly not out of the question. And, to the MVP race thing, someone, me, has a decent amount of equity in Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP at 7-1. So I'm hoping that they do run up the score here. And if I can argue to anybody listening to this who may have an MVP vote, it is outrageous not to vote for Patrick Mahomes. Drew Brees has the best offensive line, the best run game, defensive line. His attempts are way down. Patrick Mahomes for sure deserves it. I can't believe Drew Brees is a massive favorite now. So I'm tilted.
What week did you place that at 7-1? Obviously at the DK Sportsbook in New Jersey.
Over in New Jersey. Yeah. I think it was week 3 or week 4.
Okay.
You were thinking.
I just didn't know what was his odds preseason? Was it 30-1 or 50-1?
Something like. I'm not that
something
sharp.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, okay. You mentioned Seth Roberts, Pete. Marcel Aitman had 10 targets last week. No other Raider had more than 5.
There's your guy.
Not much upside here, but the Raiders are going to have to drop back more often. Teams drop back like 70% of the time against the Chiefs because they have to just try to keep up with them and keep pace. You're always playing from behind against the Chiefs unless you're the Rams. So like teams always drop back and pass. Seems like for a very cheap salary, at least a little bit of target equity here for a guy. Again, he's a big target, not really a great athlete, not a downfield threat, but he's a 6'4" target who got 10 targets last week and 15 over the past 2 weeks. If he gets 7 or 8 targets, I wouldn't be shocked at a mid 3K price.
Yeah. One of Draft Twitter's favorite sleepers this year, Marcel Aitman.
And he looks like Mo Salah from Liverpool, too. So you get that going as well.
Oh, God.
He's a Mohamed Salah doppelganger.
He's bringing the soccer talk in here. No one except for producer Luke knows who Mo Salah is.
Guarantee you producer Luke is like pumping his fist right now. Marcel Aitman will never walk alone.
Well played, Smiz. And Adam, good job betting Mahomes for MVP. I mean, I imagine you're just sitting there saying, man, that Tyreek Hill guy is really good. That Mahomes guy is really good. They're going to hit on a lot of these long touchdowns. I better get Mahomes to win MVP. That was hashtag sharp. All right, let's move to the Jets at Titans. This might be another game where kind of a pass here. There's some news and notes and maybe a couple plays, but Adam, what you got?
Yeah, tough spot for the Jets. I mean, I think this Titans defense has been exposed a bit recently, but I think they're still certainly capable of shutting down the Jets, and I'm not sure if Sam Darnold's going to play or not in this game. Robbie Anderson's banged up with an ankle. I think maybe the only play here that stood out to me, Al, was Corey Davis. I think he's still only 5,500. Corey Davis is just good, as we talked about plenty on this podcast, and he when he's not in these really tough cornerback matchups like he's had throughout a lot of his career, he's produced well. So I think Corey Davis is fine. I'm not overly excited about it, but I think he's fine, and he would be an interesting pivot to me off DJ Moore. I expect DJ Moore to be pretty popular at 5,600, or really popular at 5,600. Corey Davis is 5,500.
All right. I am not thrilled about anything in this game. However, Chris Herndon is like 3,200, led the Jets with 7 catches last week, has at least a 20-yard or more reception or a touchdown in 6 straight games. So like in the land of nothingness that has been tight ends, at least for a value player to know that he's had a 2-point floor or a 3-point floor, that actually means something nowadays with the 1.5s and the bagels that all these value tight ends have been putting up. Herndon has at least been viable and has a little bit of upside and a little bit consistent over the last month and a half.
Yeah. I'm not loving anyone in this game except Corey Davis. So Corey Davis for me, I mean, you could play the Titans defense, maybe you stack a running back with him, but for me, it's clearly Corey Davis is the one guy I'm looking at. Herndon's not a bad call, but I think from an equity standpoint, we're all looking at Ebron. Let's go to the 49ers at Seahawks, and Russell Wilson finally getting some opportunity. The Seahawks team definitely moving the ball well. Chris Carson, they're still a run-heavy team, but in this matchup, we could see vintage Russell Wilson. What are the news and notes, and where do you think about him in terms of cash games, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's playing really well, and this is another big game for them, a team they should be able to pound. Tough, as always, to go up to Seattle and play, so even if Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon missed again, I would be hesitant to go back to Dante Pettis and those guys. You know, it's just like, it's really hard to go up to Seattle and win when they're motivated and they have the crowd behind them. On the Seattle side, though, as you mentioned, you know, Doug Baldwin remains pretty banged up. Like, he's playing hurt pretty clearly, knee, groin issues. David Moore and Tyler Lockett have just been so much more explosive. Russell Wilson is for sure in play at 6,300. I think ideally the Seahawks still want to be like this run team, which is just like so awful to watch, especially when they have Russell Wilson. But maybe they open it up a little bit. And yeah, Chris Carson, I mean, similar to Gus Edwards, but not as bad. But Chris Carson does not have a very big target projection at all. But if you think Seattle blows them out, Chris Carson is going to be a huge part of it. So I don't have a huge problem with Chris Carson and GPPs at 5,200, similar to like an Adrian Peterson play, Al, where if the Seahawks score a lot and blow them out, Chris Carson is going to have a good chance at a multi-touchdown game. And he's just really good, man. I like Chris Carson in general.
I'm just sitting here waiting for David Moore to regress. When's that going to happen?
Yeah, everybody on Seattle, their efficiency's out of control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, not very many plays that I'm attracted to in this game. Kittle has been ridiculously solid ever since the takeover at quarterback. at least in terms of his routes run and his target market share, and just how involved he's been with double-digit points in his last 5 games. So if you don't want to pay up for Kelsey, if you're afraid of the blowout, you can come down to Kittle. I'm fine with that. But between him and Carson, and if you want to take a flyer on the David Moore is going to catch a touchdown on 4 targets every single darn week of the season, there isn't much in this game.
Hashtag team watch the tape. Please tell me you guys saw that Chris Carson flip and then still land it. Levitan?
Yeah.
How many DraftKings points you get for a flip?
Should get a lot. Should be worth at least 3
should be,
points.
yeah. Maybe we'll work that in 2019.
Yeah. DraftKings, another thing we're going to petition for. If you land a flip in game, that's worth extra points.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the Vikings at Patriots. Some great games. The Chargers at Steelers, obviously not in the main slate. That should be awesome. Vikings at Patriots has huge implications for the playoff picture for both teams. Could be some fantasy goodness here, too. I mean, we have guys we're definitely looking at on the Vikings, easy to kind of figure out where to go there. And then the Patriots just got really confusing, but Gronk's back, Burkhead's back. Adam, news notes, how we're attacking.
Yeah, I mean, speculation from beat writer Mike Reese, who I think is one of the best beat writers in the entire league. He thinks that Rex Burkhead will rotate in every 3rd series to the Sony Michel role, and James White will stay in his pass game role. I'm not sure Rex is ready to play quite that much, but either way, I mean, we're back to the 3-headed backfield, Rex, Sony, and James White. You mentioned Gronk, he caught the touchdown last week. I still think he looks like he's running in quicksand to me. Hashtag team watch the tape is always dangerous, but he's just had so many injuries pile up on him. I'm not that excited about Gronk. He could certainly have a really good game, and he remains pretty cheap. What is he, like 5,400? Yeah. So yeah, like I'm okay with it. I think I would prefer to try, if I'm going up that high, I'd probably prefer to try to get up to Kelsey. But the key to me in this game is like the target concentration on Minnesota is so tight. Like you can actually project Diggs and Thielen both for double-digit targets every week. And that's just like so rare in the NFL. And that's super valuable. Diggs is more likely to see Stephon Gilmore. So you could argue that Thielen is the better play, but Diggs has seen more targets lately. Diggs is just as good, if not better, of a talent than Adam Thielen. I mean, they're both just awesome talents, and Kirk Cousins loves throwing to them. So I like Diggs and Thielen a lot, Al, in a game where they should be able to rip off a lot of plays. There's a good chance they'll be trailing or in a tight game, et cetera, et cetera.
Speaking of the fact that it's a good chance that they're going to be trailing, they're the second pass happiest team in the league, dropping back over 80% of the time when they are playing from behind. Cousins over the last month has had a 73.5% completion percentage. He leads the NFL in completions this season. We've seen quarterbacks go ham 22 plus points over 5 times against the Patriots this year already. This could be a good spot at only 5,500 for Kirk Cousins. We talk about all these guys that are 6K and above and all these other things. You could pair Kirk Cousins with Thielen, as you said, with the more advantageous wide receiver cornerback matchup this week, as opposed to Diggs, and really not have to pay all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the Kirk Cousins call. Dalvin Cook finally looking like the player they expect from when they drafted him. He's been battling injuries. Obviously, the ACL tear was brutal last year, but that's good news for the Vikings going forward. The Patriots are just so hard to figure out. I expect, Xavier Rhodes is going to be out. So what about Josh Gordon?
Yeah. I don't hate it. Josh Gordon's always going to be like an upside play for me playing that outside role. As they get more and more guys back, it's hard to project Josh Gordon for enough targets, particularly when Julian Edelman, to me, is like back right where he was. It's impressive what Julian Edelman's been able to do. I thought he was a really good play last week right there with Keenan Allen in that slot role. I wish Julian Edelman was a little bit cheaper. It's hard to click him at 7,100 given how low his ADOT is and everything and all the guys they have, but I still think Julian Edelman will see 8, 9, 10 targets in this game and have a really high catch rate.
All right. Well, that is the main slate. Adam, I'll kick it to you for your conviction play. I'll give mine, and then we'll kick it to Al, and you guys can figure out Adam's lineup from there.
Oh God, I'm trying to think of a guy I can play who might be in my lineup, but might not be. You know what I mean?
That's not a conviction play, Adam. That's a borderline play. This segment is not called borderline plays.
I got a question for Pete before we do it. Did you played Emmanuel Sanders last week? Correct?
Yeah.
Congrats on the sex.
Did it result in hashtag team sex?
My family might be listening to this, but Ashley's now tweeting at me like, "Hey, your family's tweeting." And then my sister comes out of nowhere with like one of her locked accounts, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we're watching this." So gotta be a little bit more careful.
All right.
Wait, your family's watching #Team Sex?
Oh God! All right,
All right. We're getting past.
It's taking a turn for the worse.
All right, I'm gonna go with Aaron Jones for my conviction play.
Oh, look at Adam. He's going to the guy who's definitely not in his lineup, but might be. That's a nice play by Adam.
Might be. I think he's strong. He might be in my lineup. You never know. I think the way that, I mean, the Packers have just atrocious coaching, but it wouldn't take a genius to see the best way to attack the Cardinals is with Aaron Jones. Ton of volume for him. We know how banged up their wideouts are. We know how banged up Jimmy Graham is. We know that Patrick Peterson will be on Devontae Adams. It just makes sense to feed the ball to Aaron Jones 18, 20, 25 times. And he's actually shown a reasonable role in the pass game lately, which he hasn't shown in the past because they were so concerned about his ability to protect. So to me, Aaron Jones at 6,700 is underpriced. And a lot of these other running backs that we've talked about, I would probably say are awesome plays, but maybe more appropriately priced. So I'll go with Aaron Jones.
All right, like that call. I'm going to go with someone who also is not like a just clear jam in. We could say Christian McCaffrey or Todd Gurley or someone like that. I'm going to go with Kenny Golladay going against this Rams defense. I think if you look at the line right now, the Lions are going to be throwing. They're most likely to be down, and the target share is just ridiculous. I hope they're not pounding with LeGarrette Blount. He's been so bad this year. So if that's the case and they're down, you should see Theo Riddick out there, Ellington and Golladay. A lot of targets, a lot of upside. Unlike Courtland Sutton, he has actually come through. So Kenny Golladay is my conviction play. Al, what you got?
I'm just going to go with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, if Adam didn't want to give anything away, he could have just said Eric Ebron, right? We could have said Carlos Hyde. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey.
Nice.
I've said it all season long. This guy has essentially a greater market share of carries and targets than Alvin Kamara did last year, and now he's added goal line usage up against one of the worst defenses in terms of stopping fantasy production, one of the three defenses that we attack pretty much on an every single week basis. I know the price has come up. I know he had a slate-breaking game last week. He's also had slate-breaking games like 4 of the last 5 weeks, guys. Just not 50 points, but 30 plus is pretty outstanding for a running back. Yes, he is cheaper than Todd Gurley. No, he is not Todd Gurley, but you're getting Todd Gurley type production each of the last 5 or 6 weeks that we saw from Gurley earlier in the season from McCaffrey right now. That's going to be my conviction play. So for Pete and for Adam, hopefully producer Luke is still partying across the pond because of the Mo Salah reference. We'll catch you next week, guys. Bye, everybody.
We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.